Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this, only the third ever Monash Business Awards virtual lunch webinar. And what a beautiful day it is today in the city of Monash. It's at 30 degrees, the sun is shining, and we're all coming out of lockdown. So things are looking very positive. It's great news. Good afternoon. My name's David Chaplin, and it's my pleasure to be your MC for this afternoon. In addition to my role as a committee member at the MBA, my day job is as a sales executive for Eastern Press. We are a commercial printing business based within the city of Monash. I am aware that I do have a fairly strong Scottish brogue, so I promise to try and talk as slowly as possible. Our very special guest this afternoon is Geoff Flemming from Vital Smarts Australia and New Zealand. Geoff will be giving you many useful takeaways to assist you when you need to have difficult conversations in your workplace or at home. And those of us out there who are married should find this particularly useful. I know I will. Firstly, in the spirit of reconciliation, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we are virtually meeting and pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and future. This webinar has been made possible by the wonderful support of all our sponsors. Our principal sponsor, the City of Monash, hi to Paula Brennan. Writer, which is an initiative of the Australian Petroleum Production and Exploratory Association. It's easy for you to say. The Core Equipment Solutions, hi to Steve and Tom. Sharrett Pittman Legal, hi to Mitchell. The Huntingdale Golf Club, hi to Alex, Kate and Lloyd. Waverley BMW, thank you to Mark. The Carbon Group, hi to Igor and Ash, and thank you very much. Big Fish Recruitment, we say hi to Nikki. And our gold sponsor, our Westpac, and we thank Julian Sakowski for your sponsorship. So, as you can see on screen, our agenda. First thing we're going to do is get into our nominee presentation in a moment. Then at around about 10 to 1, 5 to 1, our guest speaker, Geoff Flemming, will present to us. At around about 1:20, Geoff will finish up and we'll go to any questions. And then this is a good point as any to ask you to submit questions as Geoff is presenting, anything that pops up. Any questions you may have, you'll see on your right-hand side of your screen a little question panel that you can send through questions to me. And then at around about 1:30 on the dot, we'll try and wrap it all up and send you back to your working day. So at this point, can I ask a little bit of housekeeping, if I could ask all of you to just ensure that your microphones are muted to ensure we get the best sound quality possible. And as I said before, please send your questions through for Geoff as they come to mind. So on screen now, you can meet both of our nominees. Firstly, the handsome gentleman in the chef's jacket is Maurizio Fabio Manzi, and Maurizio runs a business called Sorbeteria Buonissimo. How are you? Good afternoon, Maurizio.
Hello, good afternoon, David. Thanks for having me today here.
And also to the right-hand side of your screen, we say hi to Sharon Weston from Artfulness Retreats. Good afternoon, Sharon.
Good afternoon.
Welcome. So our first nominee to present from Sorbeteria Buonissimo is Maurizio. Maurizio, please tell us about your business.
Okay, so it's a pleasure for me to be here today. Good afternoon. My name is Maurizio Manzi. I'm from Italy. I'm the owner and founder of Buonissimo, Melbourne's first Italian artisan gelato truck. I'm extremely honored to be today here and trying to explain the idea and the dream behind the Buonissimo. So the concept of Buonissimo is to replicate the real Italian artisan gelato in Melbourne by using a mobile and flexible format. This journey started in the birthplace of gelato, which everybody knows, it's Italy, in 2008, through a long research, study, and training with gelato masters, specifically on authentic recipes and ingredients used to obtain a natural premium product. My goal here in Melbourne is to produce quality Italian artisan gelato by using only natural ingredients. Some of them, such as, for example, the very unique lemon juice comes from Sicily, the southern part of Italy. Other ingredients, such as the hazelnuts, comes from the northern part of Italy, Piedmont, and so making them and creating the perfect balanced Italian gelato. In 2017, my market research started in Melbourne by opening a group on Facebook called Melbourne Food Truck Entrepreneurs and talking to professionals within the industry. 3 years later, I decided to start Sorbetteria Buonissimo, the perfect flexible business that's able to cater for events, parties, functions, and any other occasions where a good quality, of course, Italian artisan gelato is requested. A big success was this February, the Festival of Clayton, that have a very big success and a lot of people that came over to try. 2020, as everybody knows, has been a very challenging year for all business, but specifically for my new business. But despite these hard and unprecedented times, I managed to reorganize everything through. Number first, introducing local deliveries in the Monash community, and thanks to them, I managed to survive through the COVID lockdown. Number two, second important achievement was to create sorbet cakes that help the community to celebrate their special occasions and birthdays at home during isolations. Number third, reinforcing my brand awareness through receiving a lot of good and positive feedbacks, either on Google and on our social page, Instagram and Facebook. And the last, number four, very huge for me, unexpected, was a big honor because of being nominated as Australia's first representative and ambassador of Italian artisan gelato by the Italian Federation of Gelato Makers. For me personally, the most memorable thing that I have achieved that is that I have done everything on my own with a huge support, of course, of my partner. And I would like, in this specific occasion, to thank you all, everyone that is giving your time to follow this business award. And thanks as well to the Monash Council. And I hope really soon to have a chance to make you try what I intend the best gelato here in Melbourne. Thank you.
Grazie, Maurizio. Grazie. And I
Prego.
look forward to trying your sorbet and your gelato very soon. So thank you for presenting today, and good luck.
Thank you so much.
So that brings us to our second nominee for the afternoon, and we say hi to Sharon Weston from Artfulness Retreats. Hi, Sharon.
Hi, David. Thanks for having me. It's an honour to be nominated.
Yeah, please tell us about your business.
Okay, so I'm Sharon. I'm the founder of Artfulness Retreats. I've been a graphic designer for over 20 years and also run children's and adults art classes from my home studio. It was these classes, along with life-changing experience, that led me to create Artfulness Retreats. In February this year, just before COVID started, I was fortunate enough to attend a retreat in Fiji. As I was taking notes during one of the workshops that was with author Elizabeth Gilbert, I scribbled down the initial ideas that have now become Artfulness Retreats. Elizabeth spoke about finding your enchantment, that thing that gives you the yummy, buttery feeling, you know, when everything just feels right. And giving others a glimpse of the pure joy that I experienced in Fiji is my enchantment. And so that's how Artfulness Retreats was born. My retreats aim to bring the participants back to the traditional meaning of mindfulness, allowing them to hold themselves in a calm, safe space, to focus on themselves, and to remember to relax into their creativity. Fully Catered, the two-day small group retreats were created to give participants a sense of calm in a busy world, allowing them to take a moment to focus on self-care. The retreats are held in luxury accommodation and provide a safe and comfortable space to create and relax. We do this by providing workshops, that work together to fully engage creativity, mind, body and spirit. As a bonus, each participant is treated to a relaxing shiatsu massage to round out the experience. There are currently 3 types of retreats. There's Create and Meditate, which incorporates art workshops that link in with meditations throughout the weekend. Create and Move is a more vibrant experience combining art workshops, laughter coaching and movement. And finally, I have my Create and Innovate retreats that are designed for the corporate market to assist with thinking outside the box, using art workshops and business coaching sessions to help spark their innovation. I've handpicked a team of specialists to bring these retreats to life and look forward to expanding the offerings to include options for families. As a way of giving back to the community, each of my retreats will offer a percentage of the sales to 2 charities that I work and volunteer with. The first is the Monash-based charity St Kilda Mums, who provides safety, opportunity and dignity for children and families in Victoria. And the second is So Brave, which is a Brisbane-based young women's breast cancer charity. This is just another way that my retreats are able to bring me enchantment, which I hope to spread far and wide. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Sharon. Thanks very much for telling us about your business. Laughter workshops, that sounds like something I'd enjoy. I might have some of that. That would be great. But I think after the big lockdown that we've all just been through, it's one of your retreats sounds like a good weekend to me. So thanks very much again, Sharon, for telling us about your business. So many thanks to both our nominees this afternoon for telling us about their businesses. Great to gain some insights on local business. In normal circumstances, at this point, we present you with your certificates, but of course, right now, this is not possible. But we will get those to you when we visit your business as part of the next stage of the nominee process. So once again, to Sharon and Maurizio, thank you very much. And to both of you, all the very best of luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So, as you can see from the slide that we currently have on screen, I'm going to now introduce you to a new award, which is the MBA Resilience Award. So, 2020 has unquestionably brought some unprecedented challenges for the Victorian business community. Throughout this period, the MBA have heard inspiring stories from local businesses who have been moving swiftly and showing great resilience and adaptability to ensure that they continue to thrive. For example, the Monash City Council have been conducting work over the last month or so with hospitality traders around the push for enhanced outdoor dining. And there have been some really good success stories around that. So, to recognise and celebrate accomplishments like these, the MBA is delighted to announce a new award category for the 2021 award period, the MBA Resilience Award. So, have you made any tweaks to continue supporting your clientele, or have you completely pivoted your offering to stay in business? Have you done something that you wouldn't have done otherwise that has changed your business for the better? If so, the MBA would like to hear from you. The MBA Resilience Award is open to businesses of all sizes, from sole traders to large corporations within the city of Monash. And note that if you have already submitted an entry in another MBA category or are planning on doing so, this does not prevent you from applying for the MBA Resilience Award, as all applications will be judged independently. Entry is free and winners will be announced at the 2021 MBA Gala Dinner. Further details and nominations can be submitted at our website, which is monashbusinessawards.com.au. Just follow the links from the homepage. Or you can email admin@monashbusinessawards.com.au if you have any queries or any questions. And that brings us to our very special guest for this afternoon, is Geoff Flemming. Good afternoon, Geoff. We can see you there on screen. How are you?
How are you, Dave? And yeah, thank you for the opportunity to be here today. And thanks to Lisa and Sarah and all the organisers. Appreciate the opportunity.
Geoff is the Managing Director of Vital Smarts, Australia, New Zealand. So have you ever had a difficult conversation that left you feeling awkward and misunderstood? This Crucial Conversations workshop will empower you to create a healthy dialogue by stepping into disagreement rather than over or around it, which will result in improved relationships and results. So Geoff's presentation this afternoon is based on over 35 years of research and is designed to be an overview of what is normally delivered in a comprehensive 2-day program. When faced with a crucial conversation, i.e. one where the stakes are high, where opinions vary and emotions are running strong, we tend to follow one of two ineffectual paths. Either we speak directly and abrasively to get what we want, harming relationships in the process, or we remain silent with the hope of preserving relationships only to sacrifice results. At the heart of healthy and high-performing organizations are people willing and able to quickly, directly, and effectively speak up when it matters most. The MBA is delighted to offer this high-energy and rapid-fire online workshop backed up by decades of social science research, which will impart practical skills that participants can use immediately in their business relationship. Once again, we do invite questions from the audience. Please submit them on the question panel. But ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to present to you Geoff Flemming.
Thank you, Dave, for the intro. And again, thanks everyone for the opportunity. I hope for everyone listening in today that everyone's managed to stay really well during, for a lot of people, it's been a real crisis this year. I know we connect regularly because we're part of a global group with the USA. So many meetings I've connected with people in the USA where they've either had COVID or in some cases their whole family has had COVID. Our partners in India have lost family members. And so I think with what we've seen probably as a country, we are pretty blessed, but hopefully everyone's managed to stay really well, and looking forward to a booming 2021, both business, family, health, community, all the above. So Dave, we had a little bit of a challenge yesterday, as you remember, Dave, just locating the right screen. I think I've got that figured now. So if I click on this, you can tell me now what you can see, if you can see your screen being shared. What can you see?
Yes, we're on the right track, Geoff. We can see your slides.
Nailed it in one.
Yeah.
Good news.
Well done.
Okay. So how's that? Can you still see me okay? So are you there still, Dave? Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can, Geoff. Carry on.
Oh, great. No problems at all. All right. Ready to roll. Now, what I'll do, Dave, is I'll get you to keep checking with me, or I'll check in with you in relation to times today and how we're traveling with time. Also, if you feel free to let us know if you see a question that I need to handle straight away, and or we can leave that to the end. But let's get this moving. But thanks everyone for joining us today. I've said it before, appreciate the opportunity. In the next 30 minutes, I'm going to take you through the skills and principles that we've learned around the world in how to hold people accountable, how to step up to tough conversations. I can guarantee that over the next 30 minutes, you are not going to be a pro. Like, it's just not going to happen. But feel free to take notes if you want to, and let us know via Lisa if at the end you need any more information. Let's just keep this moving along from there. And Dave, I'll get you, as I said, get you to give me a hand just to get me on track. So today is a little bit, and I'll tell you a little bit more about these products in a second. It's a sort of a combo between crucial conversations and crucial accountability, the principles of the skills and what we do and how we use this training across Australia, New Zealand, and indeed how it's delivered around the world. As Dave said, again, thanks for the introduction, Dave. I'm the Managing Director of Vital Smarts Australia, New Zealand. We are the licensees for Vital Smarts. We have been now for about 11 years. I normally talk pretty quickly, and today's going to be absolutely no exception. I got your point before there, Dave, about your Scottish bro. Well, mine's more of Australian, but I normally talk pretty quickly. What we're talking about today, this workshop I've delivered primarily in Zoom this year. We've probably done about 50 of these. We normally do them over about a sort of an hour and a half. We've also done half-day workshops, and it's delivered based on the work we've done in Australia, but it's also done around the work that we have done globally, and I'll tell you more about that now. So look at this slide here. Under license, the training we're talking about today and the principles and skills are now delivered in something like 40 countries globally. It's delivered in 20 different languages. Very recently, I sat in on just a small excerpt of one of our licensees in the United Arab Emirates delivering training in Arabic, and that was unique. And of course, you know, I think the writing, I could be wrong, I think the writing goes that way and not that way, but it's delivered right through Europe, right through Southeast Asia, delivered in a lot of countries around the world. It's based on more than 35 years of research, and it is very strongly evidence-based. So what we deliver, and most of our delivery to organisations, one of our latest clients here in Victoria was Alfred Health. I'm sure you've heard of Alfred Health. They've got about 9,000 staff. We train trainers within their organisation to teach their leaders and managers one thing, and that's the skills and principles to step up and deal with really tough issues that as humans we just tend to avoid. So in those principles, we have proven globally that what we teach does work. It is completely counterintuitive, and so even after a full 2-day training, which is what this is based on, you will definitely still not be a pro. It takes, like any new skill, it takes practice. I mentioned before about healthcare. We deliver this extensively globally in mining. We do a lot of local councils. We do, government, but we also deliver this to some other global organisations like Google, Microsoft, Facebook, Apple, all use this training, and other organisations probably that, you know, some Australian organisations like the New Zealand-based Financial Services Xero are becoming a client of ours sometime in December. So just a little bit about the work that we do. But what we talk about today, by the way, is not a magic wand. We talk about how to step up and deal with tough issues. Sometimes discussions and relationships are beyond the point of no return. Sometimes there's nothing we can do. So this isn't like the magic bullet and or the bucket we tip over and everything goes away. Sometimes discussions go beyond that point, and I guarantee some people online today have been in that situation where there's nothing you can do about a particular situation. What these skills are designed to do is to prevent that ever happening to you ever again. It's about having the right conversation now, but doesn't necessarily solve the whole problem, but it is a move forward. What typically, we'll talk now about what typically gets in the way of dealing well with really tough issues. And I guarantee in your organizations, if you're part of a community, you're part of a, let's say, committee, if anyone's on a committee, you'll recognize all these issues. So what are some of the things that typically get in the way? Number one, we just don't know how. As leaders and managers, as family members, even for people that have set up a business, you know that when you've been through school, no one teaches you really how to set up a business. When you join any organization, most organizations will teach you how to be competent in your role, but we do not teach people typically how to step up and deal with tough issues. You might learn how to present and how to sell and how to manage, but how to deal with really tough issues. Under pressure, in pressure situations, we as humans tend to exhibit two fundamental behaviors. Number one, we go to fight or we go to flight. In the training, we call those violence or silence. Now, when I say violence, I don't necessarily mean getting violent, but it could be a little bit like me. Sometimes when you want to get your way, have you ever done that? You either talk faster or turn up the volume. But what tends to happen typically in any organization we've worked with in Australia and New Zealand that measures their culture would typically tell you that our culture is one of avoidance or it's one of silence. So when things get really tough, people do nothing. It's a difficult one to resolve, but the challenge you have is when people don't speak up, there are always consequences. And all the work and all the research we've done globally shows that silence causes the most problems. The early work we did in healthcare, the research was would you believe, called silence kills. And what that shows is, it shows in healthcare, when people don't speak up and processes don't get followed, people tend to get sicker and die. So number one is we just don't know how to. We just don't have the skills. Go back sort of 3 or 4 months ago and you had teachers who were great in classrooms, for example. We do a lot of work in education. We work with SA Education and we do a lot of work with early learning groups in Australia and New Zealand. But teachers didn't have the skills. We're never given the skills. We work with a New South Wales-based university, And in that university, they've got some 14,000 staff, and you'd believe that. You see some of the big universities like Monash University, for example. And what the HR director told us in a meeting is they've got about 130 HR partners that work with managers. Now, his comment was that we should have about 30 or 40. The reason we have so many is that so many competent and motivated managers get step up to a position of incompetence when it comes to a tough issue. So a situation comes off the rails, they don't know how to deal with it, or they deal with it poorly, it just spirals out of control, and over time it gets handed on to an HR partner. And so situations tend to just get worse, like anything, if they're not tended to. Number 3, overwhelm. Who's ever read a book? There was a book I read years and years ago. I don't know how old it is. And it was called Men from Mars and Women from Venus. If anyone's read that book, I'd normally, by the way, in these workshops, get people to check in. And I won't do that today. But as I said to you, Dave, if you can still hear me okay, any questions you think you need me to follow up on, or chats or comments, just let me know as we continue. But our tendency in overwhelmed situations, and this is a psychological fact, is to shut down. So we can shut out light. You know, we don't want to hear loud noises. We like a dark room, and that's just what happens. So we do tend to withdraw. Now, yes, men and women do handle it differently, but by and large, what happens is we take on new behaviors that help us do anything but resolve the problem. It's just what we do naturally. So maybe in 1,000 years' time or more, we will evolve beyond, let's call it cave person behavior of going into fight or flight. We'll be able to deal with these things well now. But for now, that's the tendency. We can't resolve it. And the purpose of these skills is to give you a toolkit when nothing else works. We can communicate clearly like this. Under pressure, we tend to either communicate badly or not at all, and we just withdraw from situations. Number 4, imagine you're a leader of an organization. And it was great before having our nominees on and listening to their dreams and their passions and what they've developed actually coming to life, which is fantastic. And being in business for some 20+ years, I can relate to all of that. It was fantastic. So you're a leader in an organization, and imagine under pressure, you should be showing up at about 8 out of 10. If you've ever read one of John Maxwell's books, he talks about the law of the lid. And so if your lid is 8 out of 10, then you're likely to have your people show up about 6. But what if you show up as a leader at 3 out of 10? What are you expecting to get? So are you playing an A game as a leader when these issues happen and something comes off the rails? Okay, or are you playing a D game? So where are you out of 10? You can rate yourself. Lisa, I think Lisa's going to get at the end to a link. We'll talk about it in a second. And you can assess for yourself, by yourself, and get a report that shows you how good you are, how effective you are at operating under pressure. It's called your style under stress. Number 5, consequences. When conversations go wrong, and we've got so much global research that says when conversations don't go well, it'll sometimes bite you, and you know where, every single time. So when conversations either don't go or don't go well, there are different consequences, but almost always those consequences are a long way from what you really want. And sometimes, you know, when someone's not communicating with you, what we can tend to do is not communicating with them. We want them to communicate with us, and the way we deal with it is not communicating them. So our behavior is inconsistent, if you like, with what we really want. But somehow, if conversations go badly, and we know this, what happens is it'll get you somehow. But what if you've got the skill set? But what if the right skill set, what if you've done, for example, you've read the book, and we'll talk tonight about getting a copy of, for example, Crucial Conversations. You have the right conversation. Now, it may not resolve the issue. In healthcare and other industries, we talk about legacy issues. A legacy issue is a problem that's been banging around for way longer than it should have been. And in our lives, I know we all have those. One of our clients in New Zealand, Wellington City Council, Greg Orchard, was the COO, and he's now moved on to a new organisation. But they've been clients of ours for about 7 or 8 years. And he talks about and tells a story in training that he didn't talk to his brother for, guess what, 10 years, didn't talk to his brother. And some of these skills now help him to open a door. Now, you can imagine after 10 years, one conversation is not going to bring back or rectify 10 years, but it's a move forward. It's never going to correct the whole problem, but it's a step in the right direction. But not only that, if you've got the skills, you can start teaching these skills to your teams. You can teach these skills to your family. My daughter runs an early learning centre down at SAR. We work extensively with early learning groups in Australia, like Good Start Early Learning, if anyone's heard of Good Start. They've got about 650 centres here in Australia. And I teach her these skills because she's got a big centre and she has staffing issues, guess what, all the time. So you can teach your family members, you can teach members of your community, teach members in your committee, and use them in meetings or managing performance, how to talk about tough issues without other people thinking you're making them the problem. I've got a little flashing thing here, Dave. You've got a little flashing thing there. I'm going to read a little message and it's going to say, doesn't tell me anything. Dave, is there a question in there somewhere that I need to handle? Can you see a question or something in there? We're good?
There is something flashing, but what I think we should do, Geoff, we'll just let you, if you don't mind, we'll just let you do your presentation, and then we'll come back to questions at the end, if you don't mind.
Very
I think
good.
that probably let things flow a bit more smoothly.
Dave, you're running the show. Happy to, no problems at all. Just jump in if we need to do something different than what I'm doing. Very cool. All right. So back to it. You can teach these skills to your teams. You can teach the skills to people in other organizations. And my perspective, if anybody's been in an organization where you have formal performance reviews, I'm a non-fan. I'm a really big non-fan. That's another discussion. But if you can talk safely about managing performance every single day, do it safely, create an environment where your team are used to doing it. Who needs to stop for a performance review? Because as a team, we are talking about managing and creating high performance every day. This is what these skills will give you. And as I said to you today, this workshop will not make you a professional. It won't make you a pro. You could read the book. There's a number of other things that you could do to learn some of these skills, but it's like anything else. It just takes time. It takes practice. Ever heard the expression before? It's just not fair. Okay, and you hear this often when people go on strike for parity, when things aren't fair. These skills will help you create equality. If anybody ever been in an organization where they do what they call 360 accountability, and that's typically that you would reach out in some sort of a data collection system to people around you to ask them about you and your leadership style. Well, what this will help you to do, this will help you to create and maintain accountability across your organization, across your committee, across your family. What we see categorically in business is holding high performers accountable is a snap. It's so easy, it's not a problem at all. Medium performance, it's not too bad because it could be just like a course correction. People with poor behavior or performance issues or something else are typically the ones that don't get dealt with well. And it's not the performance system in our experience of 11 years. It's more about the fact that we just do not have the skills. And then what happens is, as a leader and manager, people can see that there are issues that go unaddressed. And how do they see you and your leadership? Okay, and what are the consequences for you? So not dealing with the problem, as we said before, creates new problems. Let's keep moving. The key in crucial conversations, crucial accountability training is not to make you a better speaker. It's not about making you a better listener necessarily, although that'll help a lot. It's not about making you any better at sales or being more assertive or trying to, let's put in brackets, manipulate others. It's none of those things. It's about creating safety. If I can make a conversation safe and I have the principles and skills, which is what we teach to make and keep a conversation safe, then we can talk however we communicate about almost anything with anyone. Think back to a situation where you had a really sticky issue to deal with and you had some friction at the start. When you clear it, it just feels so good for everyone. I had a client a little while back that really got stuck and he used a couple of these principles, and his comment was after he used a couple of them, and he's typically, like when I say, he's a ready, fire, aim kind of person. So he fires first and thinks about the consequences the next day. He said, as soon as I use one of these particular skills, and we'll talk about one of them today, he said, it's a bit like the door opened and all the oxygen rushed back into the room. The emotions went out of their conversation and everything just settled back down and we're able to talk. So it's all about creating safety. Dave, I'm going to grab a very quick drink here and we're going to get into our 5 principal skills. As I said today, Feel free to take notes. It's going to keep moving pretty quickly today. Again, for sake of time, I've got here about 1:05. At the end, we'll give you the opportunity to get some more information. Hopefully this is helpful for you today. If you take and use one of these skills, you will find it will make a really big difference. Just give me 1 second.
Take a deep breath, Geoff. Have a drink. All right, you're going so far. You're going beautifully.
Thank you very much.
We're at about the halfway stage. All good.
Very good. That's good, man. That's okay. I have to hold the top of my drink bottle, Dave, because it's come out. Another day I did that, had a drink, and I managed to hose down the front of my shirt. It was not a good look, so I'm trying to avoid that for today. We're ready to go. All right. 5 principal skills. Principle number 1, the hazardous half a minute. My absolute favorite. This comes out of Crucial Accountability, and I think it's a principle that we talk about and teach and try to use. We as a team have lots of people in our organization that have these skills and teach them to organizations every day. Do we still get stuck in conversations? Absolutely. But we have no excuse really, do we? Because we have the toolkit to be able to prospectively resolve these. But at the same time, you know what? We're still human. So hazardous half minute, or the HHM. What that means is this, is the first 30 seconds of a conversation will to a very large extent determine the nature and the structure of how the conversation goes. It's all about starting strong. If I can get the first 30 seconds right, and remember I talked about I can keep it safe, it's very likely we'll move into the conversation. When the conversation becomes unsafe, what happens is that we conversations go to you and me conversations, and new problems start to arise. An hour later, we walk out of the meeting dissatisfied. Who can relate to this? Blaming each other. And then we go out and have the very effective meeting after the meeting, which is the meeting when we can talk about everything we should have talked about in the meeting with someone else who is probably empathetic but simply can't help. Let's look at the 3 principles around managing the hazardous half minute. Number 1, describing the gap. What do I mean by that? What I mean by, and as I said before, we normally would workshop some of these, but just for sake of keeping this moving today, what I mean by describe the gap is, what is the actual problem? Now, there might be a problem around a performance issue. It might be an issue around someone being late, or someone not getting in a report, or someone not coming back to you or following up, or an issue around, my daughter has lots of them around people in early learning that just are behaving probably as they should. So all those issues. So when I say describe the gap, what I'm not saying is describe how I feel about the gap, describe about the consequences about the gap, describe how you feel about that other person, and however you'd like to describe the other person, or anything. It's just, what is the problem? What is the problem? What we always recommend, and in this training, we give you a form that you would fill out to prepare for the conversation. Can I say, whenever I step up and deal with these with clients, or anytime we have one of these conversations, I'll always prepare in advance. So number 1, describe the gap. Number 2, what's my intent? Critical. This is one of the foundational pieces in conversations and accountability. And what I would say to you is, be overt, not covert about my intent. When I say overt, be clear with others about your intent. Now, we talked before about a safe conversation. A safe conversation is not necessarily a nice conversation, because sometimes nice conversations causes us to avoid talking about what we really want to talk about, and will justify in our mind why we don't talk about it. So a safe conversation can be just clearing up a misunderstanding, but a safe conversation could be someone in business advising someone that they're about to exit them from their organization. You get it? That's a really tough conversation at the best of times, okay? But it still has to be safe. So be clear up front as to what is my intent. I don't mean in the heat of the moment we may not be thinking clearly, but what's my intent long term for you and I and us and our relationship and our business and the results we really want? Be overt about it. That gentleman I mentioned before, this is the person who was already fire aim. What he did was, he said to the person, I'm not sure what has got us to this point. I'm wondering what we need to do, because they'd had a big explosion, to get us back to where we were and back on track. And he said it was like the door open and the oxygen washed back in the room. So number 2, be overt about your intent. Number 3, remember we talked before about describing the gap? Only start with the facts of the situation, not conclusions, not allegations, not assertions, not what you think you may have heard or think may have happened, only start with facts. Got that? So describe the gap, number one, managing the hazard, half minute. You got that? Describe the gap, be clear and open about your intent, and number three, only start with facts. That's why I said right up front, you should be writing these things down before you start the conversation. And I know from the time we've been doing this, this is what I always do. Number two, CPR. You've all heard the term before, if anyone's here in healthcare. Cardiopulmonary resuscitation. That's not it. What we're talking about today is what is the right conversation to have? What's the right conversation? Number one, content. Number two, pattern. And number three, relationship. Number one, so the right conversation to have, it's why you need to prepare. A content discussion is we're talking about an issue, about a misunderstanding, about a problem, about something we just need to talk about. And it, again, could be in a business, could be in a committee, could be with one of your family members. This is what we need to talk about and getting some information, which is where the hazardous half minute kicks in nicely. So having a conversation for the first time. Number two, pattern. This is a car that belongs, would you believe, to a client of ours. And he had a problem with his front right tire where it kept going down just a little bit every month, a little tiny bit. He kept pumping it up. One day came out and he found the tire like that, and of course it destroyed his tire. And you can imagine on that car, they are pretty expensive tires. What he didn't know, there was a piece of steel in one of the walls of the tire. So pumping up the tire resolved the problem, but it was a band-aid. It never really resolved the issue. Go back to our content discussion. It's great if you've had that conversation once, but what happens is if you've had it and you both agree that you'll do this to resolve the situation, and it comes up again, and it comes up again. We've all been there, and it comes up again. I'm talking about the problem, but what I know in my mind, there's a pattern here, and that pattern is that we keep talking about the same old problem, but nothing changes. Does that make sense? That's the real conversation to have, not what happened, but what you notice continues to happen. Number three, who's ever sat in a meeting and talked to someone, but you already know in your mind, guess what? This is a complete waste of time. It's not going to go anywhere. We're not getting anywhere. We'll talk about it. We'll smile. We'll do whatever. We'll walk out the door and nothing will change, and there's no trust. If anyone's read any of Patrick Lencioni's books, he talks about lack of trust. There's no trust in the relationship. So my comment to you as a leader, you're having a conversation. Are you having the right one? Is it a content discussion? Is it a pattern? Or is it a relationship? If it's a relationship problem, what you should be talking about is the fact that I don't think this is going to go anywhere because we talk about it. I don't think we have any trust between us. Where do we go from here? The idea is to create a new conversation. Number three. How are we, Dave? Quick check-in. How are we going for time, Dave?
We've got about seven minutes, if you could.
We're going to get cracking. We're going to get cracking. Very good. Who's ever noticed with good people? I'm sorry, Dave?
Sorry, 7 to 10 minutes.
Great, no problems. We'll keep this cracking along. Number three, natural consequences. Again, one of my absolute favorites. Again, these come from Crucial Accountability. The market doesn't agree, but to me, this is my favorite training. The principles, I think, are profound. Natural consequences. Who's ever noticed that sometimes good people do bad stuff? Good people make mistakes. Natural consequences are a way that you can share with the person what can naturally happen as a result of what they do. Most organizations use performance management systems. We do a lot of work in government, and the policy says when you see a problem, use the performance management system. And what they call the performance improvement plan, the dreaded PIP, it's like a defibrillator that we can bang down on someone when they've done something in the way of underperformance or poor behavior, whatever. We call that imposed consequences, like the power stick. Always share natural consequences. Let's look at an example of that. Number one, this is you heading down the freeway. We go regularly between Melbourne down towards Warragul. We've got a property down that way. So you're on the freeway at 110, driving like that. What might be some of the natural consequences? Well, they could be, for example, again, we'd normally workshop this for today. Now, an imposed consequence might be that you see the police and you'll get a notification, end up in court, and maybe lose your license. They're imposed consequences. But a natural consequence could be you run off the road. You injure yourself, you injure others in the car, you injure others outside the car, you kill someone, you run into someone's property, you destroy the vehicle, you destroy others. Get that? All those consequences that would occur naturally would cause you to hang on to the wheel. Natural consequences in an organization could be you have a person that inconsistently comes in late. Every time we talk to them, they get all upset, so you don't know how to deal with it and you don't. Natural consequences are you never resolve the issue, you and others know. You don't trust that person, they don't trust you. No one else trusts that person because they're just not reliable. They don't include them in discussions and project meetings and all those things. Natural consequences. So my comment from today is always share natural consequences before sharing imposed consequences. Will it resolve every issue? It may not, but if it doesn't, then start with imposed consequences, and maybe we need to get to a performance management. And if anyone's been runs a business, you'll all have been there, but always start with natural consequences first. It helps to naturally motivate good people back to better performance and better behavior. Okay, last one around this is share what we call hidden victims. And an example of this, we work nationally with a wine distributor, and you'd know who they are, so we won't tell you. And they measure their performance every day through distribution through their stores. One of their salespeople got promoted to a senior sales management role, and they had to report figures in from their salespeople on a regular basis to go through to the main, executive management team so they could regularly assess turnover in their stores. Now, this one sales manager, unfortunately for him, had two of the top performing salespeople in the country on his team. Now, if ever you worked with salespeople before, you know that they don't like to be in meetings. They don't really like to be held accountable, and they don't like to be managed in the way of, figures. And so both of these would never get their figures in. And over time, not knowing how to do it, he didn't. He started to be consistently late with his figures to the point that this senior manager was in a performance situation. We talked about, he went back to his two salespeople and he said to them, what you know is what's important to you about not getting stuff in, and you keep saying to me that you want me to sell, or do you want me to do reports or come to meetings? What you don't know, it's created a problem for me. Okay, so they could see what they could see. They couldn't see what problems it was creating for him. One salesperson got his act together, the other one chose not to, and then moved into a performance situation. So share hidden victims, because sometimes in problems, there are problems that people don't see. Moving right along, deflections. Who has lots of conversations every day? Who has lots? I guarantee if I had hands coming up, everyone has lots of conversations. We communicate. We do it mostly on Zoom these days, or go to webinar. Drives you nuts. Just looking forward to getting back into classrooms and working face-to-face with people. But you'll have plenty of opportunities to be misheard. In my case, you didn't understand me because I was talking too fast, or misrepresented, or you've said something. Who knows? It's so easy these days to be politically incorrect. Managing deflection, sometimes in a really tough conversation, the conversation's heading north. Before you know it, it's over here. If you don't manage that little gap, when we talk about the gap, before you know it, it's over here. We had one problem and we've had new problems emerging. All these new problems emerging. The key in contrasting, and we call contrasting skills as a way of dealing with deflections. A contrasting skill is a way to do, number one, get the conversation and keep it safe. Okay, again, in our workshops, we practice about 3 or 4 different ways of doing it. Won't do it for today, but you can certainly read the book and learn. It is a very powerful, there was one skill I'd recommend you learn and practice and use, it's contrasting. What a contrasting statement looks like, it's not to resolve the problem, it's just to get the conversation back on track. What I don't want, what I didn't intend, that was not my intention, and that's to create safety, get the conversation back on track, and what I do want. You'll find that if you don't use this, and the conversation is unsafe, people will hear you, but they will not believe you. Does that make sense? Okay. So if you don't get this right and you get this right, you'll find that you probably don't get, we need to get the conversation stable and back on track, number one, and number two, be clear on what you actually want, what you actually meant, which goes back to things like my intention. What's my intention? Does that make sense? So wrapping up, you look at those skills about managing the hazardous half minute, getting the first 30 seconds right, number one. Number two, CPR, what's the right conversation? What's the right conversation I need to have? And we've all been there. We've been in a conversation. We know this conversation is probably a waste of time. Why am I having it? Because I don't know how to change it up. I don't know how to get to the right conversation. I just don't have the skills to do it. Number three is natural consequences. Always use natural consequences before imposed consequences. If, for number four, necessarily share hidden victims. If there's parts of a problem that you know about that are causing a problem, other people don't see, feel free to share those, and how to manage deflections to do it safely and keep conversations on track. We're in the room to talk about this conversation. If we don't get that right, it creates new problems. We waste time, we waste energy. And in the case of, I mentioned before, Greg in New Zealand, a problem happened and it blew out over 10 years. I am going to go to this slide now and talk about next steps. What we'll do today is get some information. I think that's going to come out in one of the EDMs you mentioned, Lisa, about getting, for example, what we call your style under stress. So you'll get that. It's a link you can click on. It'll take you probably 5 or 10 minutes, and it'll tell you, am I more in silence or flight, or am I more in fight? You'll know best. If you're not sure when you get the report out, feel free to share it with someone who is very close to you. They will give you a mirror image of how you behave. Neither or good or bad, but you will, more in one than other, okay, there are consequences around it. You can also get a copy of one of these. You can buy them online. Also, if you listen to audible.com, they're also a great listen as well. Dave, I'm now going to just about to start to hand back to you. Dave, questions, commentary, are we okay with time? Have I blown our time frames out?
No, Geoff, you've done fantastically well. You've kept us on time. Thank you so much for your presentation. A few things resonated with me, and at this point, yep. I'll switch myself on.
Thank you,
Dave.
Dave.
You can all see me. Yeah, hi. Now, thanks again for your presentation, Geoff. Yeah, a few things resonated with me. First of all, you do a lot of work with committees. You can resolve issues within committees. So we might get you along to the next Monash Business Awards committee meeting, which, because men are definitely from Mars and women are from Venus. We know that.
Absolutely. But, absolutely.
I am only serious. Now, you did mention about salespeople and how often so having been a salesman or a sales executive myself for 25 years, I know we don't like being held accountable. We don't like going to meetings, and we hate having to submit reports. But apart from that, we do a lot of good out there in the community.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the interesting thing that particularly resonated with me was when you spoke about the hazardous half minute and how we all are in meetings and things aren't said in meetings, and then you get out of those meetings and you have the meeting after the meeting when the real sort of business gets done. So that kind of resonated as well with me. I think we've all been there and done that. But I have got a couple of quick questions, if I could.
Yeah, fire away, Dave.
Is it possible to put a percentage figure on how many sort of really hard issues or topics could be resolved when we discuss them, when we openly discuss them within an organisation?
It's an interesting question. My experience is this: is that we work with, for example, a gentleman in Sydney who's an ex-Queen's Counsel. He's been in the law, the field of law for 35 years. Does a lot of work in mediation in government, and in some cases, mediation can be around people feeling bullied or harassed or treated unfairly. Some of those cases go on for 12 months. They go on for 12 months or more, sometimes spending $100,000 in legal fees. And he'll tell you in almost every situation, 1 or 2 conversations up front could have averted 12 months and maybe got it down to 1. We see so much. We do work in mining globally, and what happens is that almost everyone knows in mining, people get injured, there are accidents, people get fatigued and things go wrong. When they track those situations back every time, almost always there's a conversation that should have happened that didn't. So my perspective is, and it's not going to resolve everything, but I think that, again, Dave, based on the work that we do, I think 90% of your challenges can be resolved if you can step up and deal with them well, knowing some of them take a little bit of time and sometimes they're going to take a little bit longer, but the right conversation, having it now, is always a move forward. So just that's what I would think, Dave, if that helps.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. So I am aware of time and we are rapidly running out of it. I'll shoot one quick last question to you, if I could, Geoff. What do you recall, or what could you tell us is perhaps the single biggest issue that you can openly discuss that you've ever seen resolved by having one of these crucial conversations? Is there anything that sticks out to you that you thought, wow, that was really interesting, and I realised that's a question without notice?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. Look, and I can probably think of a couple, but one that comes to mind is, I know in an organisation I can think of, they're a big government department, a manager had one of their long-term employees approach them, who'd been there 10 years, and this employee walked in, and look, this person, the manager will tell you, let's call that person Dave. just for the sake of putting a name. Dave commented in our discussion, he said he knew there was something wrong with this person over the last 3 months. They just seemed different. And what he said was, you know, what you do is you say, oh, look, I think it'll go away. It's probably not a real big problem. They're typically excuses because we just don't have the skills, don't know how to deal with it. This person walked into Dave's office one day and said, just letting you know, I've just spoken to the union and I've spoken to a law firm. I'm claiming bullying and harassment, and they'll be calling you in the next 5 minutes to book a meeting. And this was like on a Friday afternoon. He's looking forward to a good weekend. These guys are going to turn up Monday. So an explosion occurred. He rang me. He rang, not me, myself, one of our team members. We talked about it. And what they did is over the weekend, they exchanged some information between Dave and the person to try and uncover what the real problem was, but not try and handle it by email because it needed to be face-to-face. Talked about it Monday morning. They shared intent and what had happened. They even had the union member come in because they managed to stave off the lawyers, but the union guy still turned up, and they spoke for half a day and all agreed that it's not really that big a problem and cleaned it up. And so it's something when the union lawyers, you know, it's going to start to spiral in mediation. It got cleared up quite quickly. It probably took a month or two to manage to settle it all down. But that was just one example of when you can intervene at the right time with a problem that can be resolved. In that particular case, it was resolved. And it's all about, if I can deal with it well now, I've got a great opportunity not only to work better with these people and have a great relationship, but we can solve problems that much quicker.
Fantastic. Thanks again, Geoff. Thank you so much for presenting to us this afternoon. And at this point, I should let our audience know that after we finish this afternoon's webinar, there will be an email sent out which will contain a link to your Style Under Stress questionnaire, which will allow each of us to do our own self-assessment and give us some feedback on perhaps what we don't know about ourselves and how we handle particular pressures when we're under stress. So thanks once again, Geoff Flemming, so much for your time this afternoon.
Welcome, Dave. Thank you, Lisa, Sarah, all the organisers. Appreciate it. Continue, everyone, to stay well. Enjoy the rest of the week and the weekend. And yeah, hopefully for some of you, hopefully that made a difference. And as I said, feel free to reach out if we can help with any more information.
Thanks, Geoff.
All the best.
So, in closing, our virtual lunch webinar this afternoon, as you can see on screen now, there are a number of handouts in the control panel on the right-hand side of your screen. These contain some nominee forms if you want to nominate yourself or a business for a Monash Business Award. There's information about our Resilience, MBA Resilience Award, and there are loads of notes about Geoff and his business, Vital Smarts Australia and New Zealand. So you can see those. They can be downloaded and printed out, and please share them around with your network of contacts. So that just about brings us to a close. We are always looking for new businesses to nominate, and so please, if you do know of a business that's doing well and you would like to have them recognised, please do so. And you will receive a survey post-webinar, which please take a moment, fill that in and give us some feedback on this afternoon's webinar. So our next event will be on the 18th of February 2021, when we will officially toast goodbye to 2020, and none of us will be sorry to see the back of that. So until then, and on behalf of the MBA committee, thank you very much for attending. We hope you enjoyed today's presentation and have a great afternoon. Thank you. Bye-bye.